Back in 2001, I was 6 years old. I grew up in a remote town in far north Queensland, Australia. I knew this boy a year younger than me called Jason. He was the youngest and only boy out of 4 siblings, while his parents were very much lower-class bogans, aka white trash. On a regular basis, the children were neglected, which could have been a contributing factor in Jason's death. Jason's family were staying at a relative's house on the outskirts of some town near a construction site. When no one was watching him, Jason went to the construction site where an accident occurred, and Jason was crushed to death by a large tire. Back at our primary school, there was Memorial Day held for Jason, and because of my age, I was totally oblivious to what had actually happened and had no concept of death. The main things I remember from that day were parents and teachers crying, the planting of the palm tree, prayers, and the tree getting blessed. A few days later, I was waiting to get picked up from school and I saw Jason walking around the place. There was none of that transparent business. He looked solid and normal. I asked him where he had been, and he looked at me, then ran behind a tree. I looked behind the tree and he was gone. Later he was back again, but further away, walking off somewhere, so I stayed waiting for someone to drive me home. My mother ended up inviting Jason's family to our house. While the sisters and mother were there, Jason kept hanging around them, then disappearing over and over again. My brother kept telling me to stop staring at the family. I said I was looking at Jason, who then poked his head out from behind his mother and poked his tongue out at me. I thought that he was playing, so I chased him and ran around the couch. By the time I got to the other side, he was gone again. This is when things really hit the fan, because I turned to Jason's mother and said, "Where's Jason?" The mother burst into tears. The sisters started swearing at me. My mother scolded me. My sisters looked shocked, and my brother was trying not to laugh at everyone's reaction. The last time I saw Jason, my mother and I were at the shop when Jason's mother was walking past, and Jason was running behind her. Years later, after I graduated from boarding school and I was living away from home, I went back to my hometown and went to my old school. I actually forgot why a random palm tree was growing on the grounds of the year 1 and 2 block until my younger cousin told me it was put there for some dead kid. The palm tree is a dwarf palm tree that grows up near a wash-up sink in the playground. It's a pretty lame place to put it, yet it looks like it's thriving. I must have been around 4 or 5 years old. I don't remember my exact age, but this happened in the first house I lived in as a kid, so definitely around the very early 2000s. Couldn't have been older than 6. I didn't have my own room, so I would sleep with my parents on their bed. One of the reasons we ended up moving was because eventually I needed my own room, and this house only had 2 bedrooms, which was enough for my parents and older sister at the time. In my parents' bed, I used to sleep facing the wall, and I was pretty much cornered in by my mom. There was a little gap made by our bed and the wall. It wasn't big enough for me to roll to and fall down, but still a noticeable gap. I vividly remember one night when I woke up in the middle of the night. I was facing the wall, and I remember feeling like something was about to happen. Just pure dread and nervousness. I lay there just staring at the wall and the gap, scared for my life for whatever reason. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness as I lay there. Out of nowhere, a black, furry hand rose out of the gap between the bed and the wall and swayed back and forth like it was waving at me. The best visual representation of what this thing looked like would be the Grinch's hand, only black. It just swayed back and forth like it was saying hello to me, but in a very exaggerated way. It scared me to the core, and I started crying and screaming. My mom woke up, picked me up off the bed, and held me in her arms. Whenever I would cry, she would try and calm me down by walking around the house with me in her arms, showing me things to try and distract me and get me to stop crying. She walked me towards the kitchen and started showing me all the pots, pans, and dishes on the dish rack, whisper-talking to me to try and calm me down. Eventually I did calm down and she carried me back to bed. At this point I was 100% awake and fully aware. She walked to the foot of the bed so we could both get on without disturbing and waking up my dad. As soon as she put me on the bed, I immediately saw the furry hand laying right next to my dad's legs, slightly twitching. My mom was trying to lead me to a spot at the bed, but I didn't want to move because this thing was on the bed and I didn't want to touch it or step on it. She was gently forcing me to walk on the bed, and I made the effort to step over it. I tried to tell my mom that there was something next to my dad, but she was probably more concerned about going back to sleep after having woken her up in the middle of the night. She didn't understand what I was trying to tell her. I just lay there in my spot of the bed, facing away from the wall this time, trying not to move. I must have fallen asleep at some point because that's all I remember from this night. I'm 21 now, and I don't think I'll ever be able to logically explain what that thing was. I know for a fact that I was awake and not dreaming. I'm fully aware of sleep paralysis, and while it does sound like something someone might see during a sleep paralysis episode, it doesn't explain how I saw the thing on the bed when I was coming back into the room. I'm really curious if anyone else has had a similar experience like this or knows someone that has. There's tons of people who have had paranormal experiences with ghosts and shadow people, but I've never heard of anyone experiencing what I did. So yesterday I moved into my new place, which is pretty old. Online town records show that it was built in 1848. It's massive, 6,000 square feet, across 3 floors and a dungeon for a basement. It's an old New England mansion, originally for one family, then apparently converted into multiple units at one point, then back to one family again. A lot of strange construction work, walled-off doorways, a lot of space between the walls of the rooms. 2 staircases that lead to different sections of the basement, 3 going up to the 2nd floor. There's also another staircase that leads to a single room nestled between the 1st and 2nd floor in the center of the house. I'm staying here alone for a while as a favor for a friend. It's been empty for a while, as said friend seems to have underestimated renovation costs. Tried to paint a picture, now to the spooky. So last night, my first night alone in this maze of doors and stairways, I had my first paranormal experience. I had always been a believer, but never saw or felt anything unusual other than sleep paralysis. I'm on the back porch smoking the last cigarette of the night just after midnight. I come inside into the kitchen, walk over to the bathroom which is connected. Everything is neat, tidy, and in order. I retire to my bedroom, which is actually more like a massive dining room with a small entryway with a fireplace. It's important to note that I didn't go to sleep. I was binging Game of Thrones. At 2:30 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom again. I'm walking down the long hallway, and just before I make the sharp left turn into the kitchen, I hit the light switch and immediately jumped backwards and was washed over with chills, and heart rate jumped straight to 150. Every single cabinet and drawer was fully opened. I stood there for a second, composed myself, and made a pathetic run across the kitchen for the bathroom. Again, just before entering, I hit the lights. Now my heart rate is about 200. The bath is the same as the kitchen. Every drawer and cabinet door and the vanity mirrors, this very large bathroom. Also, I quickly noticed that the shower curtain is shut, concealing the shower. When I know it was fully open last time I was there. An old habit, closed curtain always freaked me out. I left everything as is and just went back to the room rather quickly. I hit the obligatory extra light switches on the way back, and I did not dare to explore in the dark. I sat upright in my bed all night, staring at the doorway, waiting for the sun to rise. While I waited, I enjoyed the sounds of a ceramic mug falling into the sink and bouncing around. Of course, nothing in the morning. Also, odd sounds from the basement directly beneath me, like a metal yard rig dragging on the stone floor, and sounds of things being moved around, but not a sound from the area of the kitchen. I asked my friend a little more about the house today without telling him about my experience. Apparently it had been a very poorly operated sober house for a very long time, and had been shut down earlier in the year. I'm told of a number of overdose deaths over the years, and given the age of the house, who really knows what has happened here? About to begin night 2 alone here. Any similar experiences out there? What should I expect? Should I leave now? Or wait to see if it's lonely and just being playful?